Howdy howdy, Sue Devil here, and welcome to my review of the Mortal Empires campaign from a Dawi, a Dwarf perspective. A few things I want to clear out before I get going on this review is this is only a review from the Dwarf perspective. I mean, I understand other faction players may feel different, and this is just my thoughts having gone through a complete campaign where we painted the map. We've really experienced all there is to experience in the Mortal Empires campaign, and there's some controversy out there as to whether it should have been released when it was, and I for one am so grateful they did release it because I had such a fun campaign. And had they waited and waited and waited, I would have been waiting because I don't play the elves or dark elves or Skaven or anyone else. I just play the dwarfs, so I'm so happy they made the choices they did. So without further ado, let's get into the Mortal Empires campaign and my review of it. First of all, I would like to say Mortal Empires has everything the original game had plus. It really also hit the nail on the head in terms of the improvements that it's made to make the game more fun. And the one thing I want to start with is the traits. Now, there are previous Total War games that had traits in them. I know this is not new, and there were traits in the first game, but in the historical series, a lot of the traits are not fun. They're realistic. You get some bad traits and some good traits, and in the original game there were some traits that were genuinely infuriating, like -2 public order for your entire faction because you were executing greenskins. I mean, it's just really unfun and not enjoyable. But the traits they put into Mortal Empires are completely awesome, all of them. There's even a few that are kind of negative, but they're still fun. Like if you send a hero down to Vampire Land for too long, they will get a trait where they kind of get to be a little bit crazy and cost your army, reduce your public order in the local province, but on the flip side, they increase your regeneration, probably because maybe they were bitten by a vampire. I don't know. But these traits where you get special traits for defeating legendary lords are truly brilliant. And all of the legendary lords you defeat have a different trait. So, for example, here I've defeated Grimgor Ironhide in battle, and now Thorgrim Grudgebearer has this armor-piercing damage plus 20. Any lord you fight and defeat Grimgor with will get this trait. And it's awesome. You fight enough legendary lords, your own legendary lord becomes incredibly powerful. And that's one of the really great things they've done in Mortal Empires, is they've made it so that you can advance and keep advancing your legendary lords even past level 40, and they feel like legends. They really feel awesome to use, like powerful, fun. You get to one of your legendary lords to level 40 and he has a whole bunch of special traits. You can send him in to take on an entire goblin army on his own, and you can just imagine him swinging his axe and laughing. It's really fun. And in the first game was brilliant, by the way. I don't want to take anything away from the first game, but the first game, your legendary lords were a lot more fragile. You had to be a lot more careful with them. And then when you got them up to level 30, this is before the level 40 cap, you almost felt like you had to use your other lords to keep progressing, and you wanted to be more careful about using your level 30 lords because there was no progression left. And they've done away with that. Not only can your lords keep progressing past 40 by getting these new and awesome traits, it's fun to use them. Like, you want to use them in battle all the time because they're so powerful and they're so awesome. This is just a 10 out of 10 for a a design choice and making the game so much more fun and enjoyable in every way I can think of. There's a lot of other things, like if you go to, well, let's just go past some of this stuff. If you go to, say, one of your regular lords, and now they can get immortality at rank 20. This is just a carryover from the Total Warhammer 2 game. It's really nice. I mean, you don't have to worry about losing your lord forever, and someone you've worked on so hard, and all the armor that they may or may not have. It's really, really a good design choice, and it fits with the gameplay. One of the other kind of neat things is like I noticed a whole bunch of things when I played this, because I just came off 2 Game 1 campaigns, and a lot of things felt very, very different. Like, for example, the battles take longer. Now, you might not notice this if you hadn't, kind of gone from one to the other, but, the battles maybe take 10-15% longer, so you have a little more time to make choices with your, in the battles, especially when you're on Legendary. You can't pause. I mean, you have a little bit more time, and it is just more fun, and I think they've really hit the sweet spot, where the battles don't feel tedious, yet they're a little bit longer, so they're a little more satisfying, and I really, really like what they've done with that. One of the other little things are, like, when you get into a fight and you get to the end plates, your characters will you'll see which one of them are dead. You always never knew which one were going to die. They, kind of read and see if they said 0, but they'll be grayed out. Nice little improvement at the end of the battle. Now, one of the other things I really like that they've done is they have more special buildings. So if we go into Karazakarak, they've added, for example, the Karazakarak airfield. So, and I mean, this is an awesome building. Campaign movement range plus 5% for all forces, upkeep minus 10% for gyrocopters and gyrobombers, and on and on. And they have a lot of these buildings around. Like, not like I would like more, but say you come down here, there's the Black Pyramid of Nagash, and you take it, or you get it, and it gives your entire force plus 10% magic resistance. Your gold mines, we go up here to your gold mines, and you get up to the top, and it gives you income, but it also gives you +1 Lord recruit rank for all provinces, and +1 Thane recruit rank for all provinces. So you get enough gold mines, you can recruit Thanes at like level 19 by the end of the game, and it's awesome. And it makes sense. Like, I love gold mines. I'm a dwarf, and they've put more emphasis on buildings doing multiple things, which I think is really awesome. Like, for example, you go to the gem mine, and not only does it give you gems and resources, but it also gives you unit experience for dwarf ironbreakers and hammers, and once you get up to level 3, and this is with all of them, it gives you minus 3% upkeep for the same units for dwarf ironbreakers and hammers, and then at the level 4 it gives you +3 unit experience when you recruit them. This is the same for lumber yards. If you go up here, I get upkeep reductions and experience for dwarf quarrelers, rangers, bolt throwers, and grudge throwers. It's actually the same with an iron mine. There used to be separate buildings, like, in Iron Rock there used to be an arsenal, and it would have some of these same things, but it's not really as good. I love how they've tied it to the buildings that already exist, and they've really just made an improvement. There's the same thing with, I think, salt mines that improves your black powder units, and, it's just the way they've done the buildings in Game 2 is just more fun in every way, and it's just made a massive improvement. One of the other things that's really changed from Game 1 to Game 2 is the advancement of trade. Now, it used to be that no matter what, you'd never trade 100% of your goods. So trade was kind of like, just before we get on to here, this is a little addition that I love. You know, if you get a refectory, not only does it improve your public order, it also allows you to produce 6 kegs of beer for trade. Fantastic. But yeah, so you never used to be able to trade 100% of your goods, so trade wasn't quite as valuable. Now trade is significantly more valuable because it's much easier to trade all of your goods, and it's really brought a new element of gameplay into it, because you can choose, you know, do you focus on hard income buildings like trinket makers, or do you focus more on trade? And if you focus on trade, if any of the settlements on the way to your capitals get sieged, you instantly lose all your trade income. So it's really, they've made that and really a truly fun and interesting element of gameplay, and a strategic choice that you can make. Do you focus on hard income, or do you really find those trade routes and protect them so they can't be sieged out, and these types of things? So they've done a fantastic job at that. I think one of the other things that is noticeable is just the graphical fidelity. You know, the graphics are just a little bit better, a little bit sharper. Everything looks a little crisper, and you know, I've really noticed that in my first playthrough. Another significant addition, and everyone probably knows about this, but it's just the addition of treasure hunting. Now, I don't see any treasures out here yet, but you can hit the oceans, and you know, you'll find different treasures, and sometimes they're really great, and sometimes they're kind of meh. It's like treasure hunting would be, and it's just good enough that it's hard to decide whether it's worth it to send a lord out treasure hunting or not. And it's definitely worth it to sidetrack a traverse across the ocean to pick up a treasure if it's really close to on your way. And there are some fun things in there. You know, the treasure hunting has been really good. And the treasure hunting, I guess, when you come across a raised settlement, it's okay. I think it's really hard to justify treasure hunting instead of settling the settlement, because it's a full turn wasted, and someone can come in and sneak in right past you and take the settlement, and you know, you lose a turn of actual improvement on the settlement. It's kind of one of those things that is I'm glad they put it in there, and it's not quite where it needs to be, but it's really fun. Something else that I've noticed is, well, let's see if we can get an army here where we can see it. Not really. Well, if we just go like this, you can see, like, in general, the recruiting is much improved. You used to always see weird armies of all orc boys, or like, you know, 15, you know, catapults or stuff like this. The AI recruiting has been massively improved in Game 2, and it is noticeable. The armies are better, they're more fun to play against, they're stronger in general, and you know, it's really been a noticeable improvement. And as well as actually siege battles, that's one other thing that I really did notice going from Game 1 to Game 2, is that the siege battles are significantly improved. I wouldn't say they're a lot funner. They're still tedious and everything else like that, but you can see that CA has tried to continue to improve siege battles. I think they're well aware that it's a mechanic that, I mean, and it's a mechanic that's really hard to balance. You know, the siege battles where you could surround the entire town. I mean, I didn't like those either. That was in medieval Total War. I mean, they're not that fun either. Or where you had to take 2 walls. I mean, they just weren't that fun. Same type of thing, and you have to balance it so that a settlement is hard to take. You don't want your settlements that you've built walls up to be easy to take, yet you want to be able to take settlements quickly yourself. So it's very difficult to balance that element of gameplay, and I hope they keep on improving it. I've noticed a definite improvement in the deployment of troops in in a siege when I'm attacking. There's not as much, there's not as many goofy things happening, though the siege battles are still, I would say, very easy but very tedious. Defending the siege battles, I think, has gotten better because the siege towers now have health. It is basically hard enough to kill them that it's not even worth killing them. They may have gone too far with that. I don't know. It used to be easy to kill all their siege towers as they came in. Now you can't kill any. I don't know. I do know that it's much harder to defend a siege, and it's a little more. It's definitely more fun. It's more interesting to defend a siege battle in the second game than it was in the first game, for sure. I've also noticed a big change in, some of these lower level skills like Axe Lord. Right now it maxes out in the new game melee attack +8 for dwarf warriors and miners. It used to be +12. Scarred Veteran is now +15 at max. It used to be +30%. They really took some of these that were the absolute must-haves and they've toned them down a little bit, which I think makes sense. It does give you a little more choice. They've done some good things, like Lightning Strike is now only a one skill thing. They've added Inspirational Leader for casualty replenishment, Reassuring Presence, so attrition reduction. So there's been some noticeable changes, though small, to the skill trees for the lords, and they've been generally good. And they've done the same sort of thing with techs. So militia training used to be +5 melee attack and +5 melee defense. Now it's +2. Interlocking shields used to be +5 melee defense and +5 armor. Now it's only +5 armor. A number of small things in the tech trees that have changed, which I think, I miss them because I like those things, but it seems reasonable. What it does is it takes away some of the quote-unquote no-brainers, the must-haves that really you really do have to go get, and makes them more of a choice. So I think that was good from a strategic standpoint. Another really great thing is once a settlement has reached level 3, we don't have any level 3 settlements yet, but you get a Thane to run your settlement, which is better, which is really significantly better. I know there was a mods out for that a long time ago, but it's really a good addition to the game, and you can even get master engineers. There are some other buildings like the Ranger Barracks, which is a great building, but it provides one ranger with great weapons for your garrison. So I think they continue to make improvements, and I would love to see more of this idea that you get up to the higher levels. Maybe you can also get a runesmith in your barracks, something so that you could really continue to have options. Do you want to make your settlement very defensive? Well, you can put in walls, ranger barracks, and maybe something else that will give you a maybe when you get to level 3 of the mustering hall, not only do you get your Thane who's normally goes there at level 3, but maybe you get a couple extra Longbeards or something like that, so that you can have a very defensive settlement, a settlement that is very focused on economics and economy, or a settlement that's focused on some other thing like public order or something like that. Really, they could expand these buildings by adding 2 or 3 more to give really 3 full options for the buildings, which I'd like to see. But it's been a definite improvement over the first game, and having 10 slots instead of 6, or some even have 12 slots. I think we don't have it over here, but the capitals always used to only have 6, and now they have anywhere from 6 to I think 12 slots. That's really been a nice addition to the game, and it allows you to really cement not worry so much about what you're putting in each settlement, so you can have more in each province, which has been also extremely good. Let me see here. I think the corruption mechanics have been improved, and that's been noticeable, I think, too. Like when you go to your corruption, let me see, where is it? Let's go see if we can pick something like this. There we go, 100%. You can see that, you know, they just have untainted and tainted, but they do have chaos corruption, vampiric corruption, skaven corruption, and I think there is a form of dark elf corruption, and maybe there's going to be more different forms of corruption, but there is only one form of not corruption or uncorruption, that's untainted, and that's simplified the skill trees a little bit. Instead of repeating, well, it affects chaos corruption and vampiric corruption, it just gives you untainted. And I like the way they've done this. It's just a balance. You know, if you have two, you know, your untainted is +2 here. In this case, if you have 2 vampiric corruption, it will balance out eventually at 50% corrupted. So if you have, you know, 4 untainted and 2 tainted, it'll balance out at 33% corruption. So it's just a simple balance. That way you can't ever, if there is, you know, some of these places have a local populace. Like you see here, the vampiric corruption, they have a local populace of +3 for vampiric corruption. You'll never get rid of vampiric corruption completely. It'll always be there because it's a balance. Even if you have 30 untainted, there will always be some small percentage of vampiric corruption. And they've done a good job with how they handle corruption in the game, and it's really scalable into the future for different things. I like how they've done it. They simplified it, and that's one of the things that I think makes the game more fun when they simultaneously make something either they maintain the complexity while simplifying the way it can be understood, like corruption, or they increase complexity while reducing confusion. And you know, that sounds counterintuitive, but it can be done. And you know, that's, I think, all with an eye to being more fun. The something that I've definitely noticed is very different blue trees for all of your heroes. These blue trees used to be, you know, quite different. You know, you used to be able to give growth with your runesmiths, and you know, and you used to have to go down. Now you can pick any of these blue tree elements at any spot, but they are locked out by level. I don't know how I feel about these in general. Some of them are extremely good, like the Master Engineer gives you plus 15% movement range if you deploy him in an army, and I mean, that is an unbelievably good skill. What it's done, in my opinion, is it has shifted the balance of your heroes more so that they're going to be put into armies, and I think that may be the original intention, and then just taken out of the armies periodically. I mean, you can still take one of your heroes, plop him into Mount Gunbad, give him a miner and a stonemason, and let him boost, you know, a dwarf bride and a daughter of Elia, and boost the income in your gold mine area by a very significant amount. But it's, I would say, generally more worthwhile to have them in armies than it was before, which is, you know, it's probably a good thing. I did really enjoy some of the play with my heroes in the Mortal Empires campaign I just ran, and normally I don't get my heroes into my armies until much later because they're so useful doing other things. So I mean, and I think that's been really good. And the other thing is, you don't have to deploy your heroes. Like if I take my hero out here, I don't have this deploy button. They just do what they do. So if I put my mouse over them, it increases the amount. He increases the amount of untainted in the local province by +2. Very simple. And you can see in his unit card here some of the other things he can do. He can add to his, that's his constant local effect, cleanse corruption. You can add to that to bring it up. The things he can do is he can damage walls, wound heroes, not lords, mind you. The only one who can wound lords now is just Thanes, and I don't know if it's similar to all others, or hinder replenishment of other armies. And when he's embedded, he's scouting, so he increases the percent chance of finding a magic item after a battle of 15%, and you can increase that as you add points into his blue tree up to an extra 15%. So you know, it's really, I think they've improved them. I think I had more fun in the campaign the way that they were, although I miss being able to do some of the things I used to be able to do with the other heroes, if that makes sense. You because I can't use my Thane to boost my recruitment chevrons, and I can't use my runesmith to boost my growth and stuff like that. But you can use, they're hard to say. I think it's a little bit funner, so they've done a good job there. Another big change that they've made is you really auto-resolving definitely favors the AI a lot more on legendary and the player a lot more on easy. So that's also been quite noticeable. Now I don't know if the outcome of the battle itself has changed, but the bar shows a lot bigger difference depending on what mode you're on. Really that's been quite an improvement. Now as far as another significant improvement is just diplomacy. So you used to have to really do everything from the diplomacy screen, and they've added little things like you can see now we're at 74 very friendly and that we're moving up. If we click on Karak Kadrin, now you used to be able to mouse over these guys and kind of see how they felt about them. It's not quite as easy as it used to be, but you do have the ability to do things like, if I go here, I can set a war coordination target from the campaign map, and I can say, okay, I just want you to go and attack Manfred von Karstein, which has definitely simplified it and made it a little bit better. There's definitely a lot of, we'll say, quality of life improvements to diplomacy. I would like to see a lot more, and I think they could do a lot more pretty easily. But that's definitely been an improvement in the the diplomacy in general, and a positive one. It's just been a little bit cleaner, a little bit better, and a little bit easier to figure out and use. And I love what they've done down here. Like, one of the things I will say about Mortal Empires is, in general, it's just the summation of a few really key changes that are really great, like the addition of traits, plus a whole lot of quote-unquote quality of life improvements. Like, when I get to the end of the turn, I can see who has unassigned skill points. Well, you just click on it. It's Thorgrim Grudgebearer. If I want to click on whatever I want to click on, I'm done. I see a lord is not moved, and that's the same with Thorgrim. If I move him, to here, okay, now it'll say, okay, you can end your turn. And if I want to, I can go and say, what do I want to be notified about? A building upgrade that's available? No, yes. So I go and do that, and now, well, I can upgrade here at Varenka Hills. And this is just a really, really nice addition to the game. And, they've done a really great job on making these things all a little bit better. Even when you do end your turns, you can choose which factions you want to watch. Maybe you want to fast forward through every faction but the Greenskins. And when it gets to the Greenskins, you want to see all their movements, all their hero movements, all their player movements. You can do that. So a significant, a lot of quality of life improvements that just make the game better and cleaner, easier to control your empire, and it scales very nicely as you get a big empire. That's one of the things that in the old games, part of the difficulty of the game was not the game. It was when you kind of got past that ability, that point where you're snowballing, it's just the tedium of running your empire. And I think they've, for the most part, solved that. They're in an incredibly good place. Because I got to the end of my campaign, I was still having fun. I had no problems managing my empire. If I wanted to go and see any of the, which is my worst settlement for public order. So I would pick, and it would just say, well, we're here, and it's going down. Which is do I have any settlements that are not being taxed? Okay, well, that one, maybe I want to tax it, or whatever. Which of the settlements that are making me money? Which of the provinces I can see that make a lot of money? Well, Eastern Sylvania, let's go there. Why is that? Well, they have a gold mine. it's maybe that'll be a key place for me to focus on expanding into. I can put my heroes by movement, and this is for the most part in the first game too, but there's just they've continued this idea with so many other things that just make the game less cumbersome on your mind, if that makes sense, in terms of remembering everything, because that's the one thing that's really infuriating when you forget to move a hero, or you forget to do something that you wanted to do. So that's been really good. Another really great thing is the addition of when an army is in forced march, they cannot retreat, and if you defeat that army, the whole army disappears. They're done. Fantastic change. It just makes it funner. And if an army outruns you and they're in forced march and another army comes along and beats them, they're gone. Period. I love it. Great little bit of addition to the game, and it gives more options, like to you as a player. Like let's just go and break that siege, where you have to choose, are you going to go into forced march? And then this other nice little thing, like this is a great example. This is a perfect example of what I mean when I talk about quality of life changes that have really genuinely improved the gameplay experience. Right now I'm in regular march, but I can see this other dotted line which is going to give me my range in forced march. It's tiny. You never used to be there though, but it's really nice. And it makes a difference. And you can see, I can get all the way to here. I don't have to switch stances to get into it. And I go to forced march stance. I can see, this is how far I can get in regular march. Just a really great kind of addition to that sort of thing. To the gameplay experience that's made it better in every single way. I think the turn times, now when you hit end turn, they do take longer, and but it's really not that much longer, and it doesn't doesn't take too long before you're completely used to it and you don't really notice it anymore. If I hit the end turn here, we start going through. Okay, now I've got it, so I'm going to watch other characters. If I want to just fast forward, I hit fast forward, and I'll fast forward past everyone else. I'm not going to flip around. I'll go through all the turns. Okay, Averland, enter on side of ally, sure. But it zips through this really quite quick. If I want to pause it, maybe I want to change my camera settings so that on Thegan's Errantry, maybe I want, I want to see heroes in cinematic view or strategic when they move, and I want to see their lords. I don't want to see where they move. And maybe I want to look at other factions, my enemy factions I can apply this to, just this faction or just my faction. It's really, really nice what you can do here. So we'll just keep on going through the end turn, but the end of the turns, they just don't take. See, now here's what I mean. Now I lost this because I just went through it, but I can see I killed that guy because he's grayed out. Grayed out. Beautiful. Love it. So and maybe, I don't know how long it takes if I were to time it, but not long. And the thing is, you really do get used to it quickly. It doesn't take that long to understand what's going on in the campaign. Definite another quality of life improvement that is fantastic and has made a big difference in how the game plays. And anything that makes the game less, I'll say, anything that makes the game easier to manage while maintaining the complexity and the strategic elements makes it more fun. And they've really hit the nail on the head with this with Mortal Empires. I mean, they really have. I genuinely had fun right up until the 295th settlement I took. There was never a point where I wasn't having fun. Well, I'll say there was still a few bugs in there that like the chaos invasion and stuff like that. But I mean, I wasn't so worried about that. I mean, it was a little annoying, but when you compare to how much fun I had in that campaign, it was incredibly minor. So there's other little changes that some people might not be able to see, like or maybe not know, is when you used to be able to get a, say, defensive alliance, and if you had military access, you could see what your ally saw, meaning you had complete vision into their province. You can no longer do that. You only get that vision if you have a military alliance, like I have here with Zifbar. And I think that's, again, a small change, but it was never really worthwhile to get a military alliance. I still did sometimes, but or lots of times, but the defensive alliance was all you needed to be able to get vision into seeing what was going on over here. Now you need a military alliance. And that does change the dynamics, because your military allies can pull you into wars you don't want very easily, whereas it's much harder for that to happen if they're just your defensive ally. So really, really good job on that element of the campaign. Another quick and easy thing is you can see the percentage. So if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, you can see I'm at 53% of my movement range. Which is also being a very nice, even though this is still a little buggy, like sometimes I can go to 53%, but then I know I have 50% of my movement range left, I can hit in camp stance. So, just a very nice thing. So, the other thing is, like if I go here, I have unassigned skill points, I can hit my unassigned skill points here, or I can use that button and go straight to it. So, very nice way of managing that. I can just keep hitting that button. It'll go to the settlement and building upgrade available. It'll go over here, and honestly, then that just ends a turn. If you want to go really quick and you want to those things to pop up, you certainly can do that. One other really cool little thing that I think is fantastic is your garrisons. Let me see here. Your garrisons get to earn experience and keep their chevrons. So if Karak had been attacked 10 times, half these guys would be rank 4, 5, 6 chevrons, and they get to keep them as long as they don't die in the battle. Fantastic little addition to the game. Not a big thing, not something most people would notice, but I sure noticed it, and it was really cool. The ability to mouse over your agents in campaign, and other agents too, like I don't know if we can see any other agents kicking around here because it's just an early campaign. I just set up and walked through a little bit to get to the point where I could do this, to kind of take a look at some of these things, but yeah, I can't really see any other agents except for my own, but it's all pretty much the same. You put your agent out, you just mouse over them, and it tells you what enemy agents are doing as well. Very, very good. One of the big changes has definitely been the change in your upkeep. So if I look, let me see. If I recruit a lord, it says here you can see at the bottom, each additional lord recruited will increase your total army upkeep by 1%. Your total army upkeep will be estimated increase by 205 gold, and that's just above and beyond their cost and everything else. Now this is much more difficult on legendary than it is on easy, of course, and I kind of like that idea of doing more with less, as opposed to trying to do some other crazy things to, a lot of people have this idea that you can just make the AI somehow more difficult or more competent, and even though I just recently watched that the new deep AI, or it's a Google product that just beat Stockfish. I mean, crushed Stockfish, and it learned to play chess in 4 hours. It beat the world Go champion. I mean, maybe someday Creative Assembly will be able to buy that AI and get it to play itself a million times, and then it will play perfectly. It will develop its settlements perfectly, and it will deploy perfectly, and it will have genuine settings where the AI is smarter or dumber. Right now that's not the case. So just doing more with less makes a lot of sense, and it really is a test of your skill, because you have to make harder choices and you have to be more focused to be more competitive inside the campaign. So it's really good. I think the one thing that about the campaign is, again, I've said it, it felt really great from start to finish. Like really, really good, with the exception of a few little bugs here and there. That's one thing about the first game. I mean, I played the crap out of that game, and I never had one crash. With this game, I had one crash. I mean, it's so stable and in such good condition. It's hard to, I'm watching some other games and the development of other games, and you see they crash quite a lot. And just this game is incredibly stable, and the amount of bugs that are in it are so minimal. I know everybody wants a perfect game with no bugs and everything else like that, but they did do a really good job for the most part. I mean, the whole Chaos Invasion, don't know how you could have missed that. I mean, that tells me that someone really never played through the game, or at least that part of the game, or they would have instantly noticed it was insane. But whatever, I'm just glad they got it out and they allowed me to play it, because I had a incredibly enjoyable campaign from start to finish, and really enjoyed it. The only other major disappointment is not a bug. It's really the Skaven. And I made a separate video about this, asking for a little love for the Skaven factions. They're down here. Queek is down here, and I think Skrulk is over here somewhere. And they're just too weak, and they get dominated, and especially by the Lizardmen. The Lizardmen are in just a beautiful place. They are really tough armies. They're really fun to fight. Krokgar is an amazing hero, and it's fun. It's annoying for me as a dwarf. I like to have all my units really square, and I like to have them very neat. And Krokgar just comes in and jumps through all your damn troops and messes them all up, and he's running around. He's impossible to corral, but he's really fun. And the Lizardmen they're better than I never really thought much of Lizardmen when I saw them coming. I'm like, okay, but they are the real hidden gem of this Mortal Empires campaign. Is they are fantastic. They are so much more than I expected, and they're fun to fight, and they're really, really just a great addition to the game. And whereas I think Skaven is more disappointing in that they were supposed to be the great addition to the game. So I think Skaven definitely still needs some love, and hopefully they get it, and you really see Skaven being like the Greenskins, a really fun faction to fight against, and a really potentially the ultimate existential threat in some of your campaigns instead of Chaos. So it could be Skaven. I would that's really the only thing I would say that genuinely disappointed me. And believe me, this is a 2% out of 98% fun. It was very small, but it was genuine, was the lack of Skaven to fight. In my campaign, I mean, if anyone saw it, when I thought Skaven were coming down here, I saw Queek, I was so excited. I was going to be fighting Skaven, and Queek Headtaker was on his way up north towards Carrickgate Peaks, and it was going to be epic and fun, and then it just sort of fizzled. And by the time I got to a position where I could fight the Skaven, they only had one settlement left, and I never even got to fight Skrolk. He was defeated before I even got over to Lustria, and I went over to Lustria, maybe not early, but I tried to get over there to fight him. So that was the only real disappointment. I think, let's look at my notes here. Well, definitely has been some changes to garrison troops. Now, I don't know how many garrisons have been changed. I don't know if it's bugs, but for example, Castle Drakenhof has definitely changed. Like, one of the reasons Drakenhof was always there to the end of my campaigns is it was impossible to take for the AI. They had 2 Terrorgeists. I mean, you know, Drakenhof was very, very beefed up as a settlement, and it doesn't have those Terrorgeists anymore. It's still difficult to take, but not as difficult, and I've definitely noticed a change in Black Crag and some other places where I've sieged them so many times. I know the troops that are there, and there's definitely been a change in the garrisons in some of the settlements. So the other thing is like I said, not all heroes can assassinate lords. I think one of the things I would just like to see removed completely is assassinations altogether. You know, I've never seen any YouTube playthrough where anyone said, okay, this is going to be fun, we're going to go assassinate this guy, or it was a strategic element of gameplay. And it might be possible to do that. I might try and do a quick playthrough where I level up a lord and, you know, assassinate every other character I can find, and that's going to be his only job, and maybe that will give me a strategic advantage, but it won't be that fun. I mean, it's just, this is one of those things where it's a hangover from the Total War historical series, where this is part of history, you know, and of having lords and heroes and characters assassinated and poisoned and all these sorts of things. But this is something that really shouldn't be part of this game, is because it's not fun. And I'm not saying, like, Mortal Empires and the first game is really hitting the sweet spot. Like, that's that beautiful sweet spot of, it's got enough strategy that it's, you know, it's like brain candy, but it's also accessible to a wider group. And I've heard some, you know, I watch a lot of other YouTubers, and some of them really don't like it because they want the deeper strategy. The more difficult, the more challenging, the better for them. I think one of the real successful parts of this this game and this combination of these 2 amazing IPs has been the fun factor and that balance of complexity versus accessibility, which is really is important. You know, it's why it's been so successful. It's still a ton of complexity, but I mean, your settlements are much easier to manage. I mean, there is only 3 buildings. Which ones do you want? I mean, they could add some complexity in here, I think, by maybe making it so you can make it more of a defensive structure, a economic structure, or, you know, something else. You know, they can add a little bit or enhance the 2 differences, or a sort of public order, or something like that. I think they could add to this a little bit without adding to the complexity, because, you know, it's really all about the choices you make. But they've really hit that sweet spot, and I want them to continue driving towards making the game more fun, hopefully slightly more complex, while making it simpler. I know, again, those 2 terms don't sound like they go together, but they really can. You can make something more, have more depth strategically, yet also make it simpler. And you know, a great example of that is chess. I mean, chess is a game that I love, and it really doesn't take long to understand the basics of chess. So it's very accessible. It's not as accessible as checkers, I get it, or maybe some other games, but it doesn't take that long to learn. Yet there's an endless amount of complexity to be had. And again, well, it's Alpha Zero, this Google AI that just crushed the world champion computer player. But you know, it's the complexity. It's almost infinitely complex, yet it's quite simple. And you can make a game like this more complex, yet more accessible still. And I hope they keep continuing down that path. Another thing that they've added, which I really like, is choke point battles. Now, the thing about it is I don't know, and maybe I'd have to research this and test it, where are all the choke points? They're not marked. You know, and you just kind of get them randomly. Now, I would guess this is a choke point, you know, but I haven't gone through and tested it. I would love to see the choke points marked, or the ability to go and just mark them on your campaign, you know, where you can say, okay, I want to see any choke point battle called a choke point called out, so I can defend them or post up someone, you know, an army there. Like maybe I post up an army right here. If this is the specific choke point, you know, wherever the bridge is across here, I don't know. But it is a huge improvement to the strategic elements of this game that would also be very accessible. Okay, this is the choke point. Someone could quickly understand that if I put an army on here, I get to defend a choke point, and you know, it's really fun. Like, choke point battles are fun. I mean, they're fun for me as a dwarf. Again, this is a Dawi review. Maybe they're not so fun if you have you know, all cav armies, but for me as a dwarf, setting up a line of 3 longbeards across one choke point and letting loose with my cannons or grudge throwers into a big blob of enemies, very satisfying. Alright, lots of new maps. That's another big thing, and beautiful maps, especially when you get down to kind of you know, Lustria, and some of the maps here are just gorgeous. And just going around here, I mean, this is just absolutely beautiful. They've done such a great job with this, and the battle maps, and it is really a beautiful improvement in that it's noticeable, but it hasn't taken away from your ability to play the game. It's just one of those things that's made the game better in every way I can think of. So they've done a really, really great job on that. And, you know, there's kind of my review. The game, as I've said before, is everything Game 1 was, and then some. The real improvements that they made is in the traits and making the game more fun and more engaging from start to finish, without without making it more overly complex or making it unaccessible. They've just made the game more fun in every single way. If you're on the fence about getting Mortal Empires and you're a Dawi player and you're kind of, well, maybe I should wait until Norska's in, or, you know, maybe I'll wait till the Tomb Kings are in, or maybe we'll wait till some more of the bugs have been addressed, I would say don't wait. This campaign is really fun, and you know, it's up to you. I mean, everybody has their own opinions and where they want to land in on a game, and I understand that, but I will say I've had probably the most fun campaign I've ever played. I just finished in the Mortal Empires campaign. The fun factor in this campaign is all there all the time for the Dawi. So hopefully I've been thorough enough to explain what changes were made and why I like them, what were the things, you know, some of the bugs that I faced, and why they weren't such a big deal, and some of, well, the one disappointment I had with the Skaven, and that all makes sense. So that's my review. Hope you found it interesting, and have a good one.